So the idea of like having a lot going on at one time is this idea that our brain is creating stress because we have a lot of different things that we need to get done. But the way that I reframe this is you only have one thing going on, and that is the current thing that you are working on. All right, 55 of Pursuit of Balance. What's up, everybody? Sorry, I was just spilling my coffee on myself. Okay, so today we're going to talk about 10 stress reduction tools that you guys can use. I always come back to this topic, and I forever will always come back to this topic because every single time I do an assessment, I had 2 assessments last night, and one, she was, I don't know, probably early 50s, 9 out of 10 on stress. The other one, she was young. She was probably, I would say, late 20s, and I think she had an 8 or a 9 too at a 10 on stress. And every time I see that score, I would say anything above a 7, I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it almost makes me like sad, you know? Well, A, for them, was like, I don't want anybody to be stressed, obviously, or unhappy. But it just, at a generational kind of society level, where I'm like, why the fuck are we so stressed all the time? And I can tell you, obviously, which is what we're going to talk about a degree today. It's funny because like I go through seasons of that where I'm like, I was literally thinking that today. I was like driving up, and today's my birthday, and I just like, receiving texts and posts and, calls. And it's just like one of those, like, it's always a feel good day on your birthday, hopefully. It's just like, it's nice to have some love. It's nice to hear from people that you haven't like heard from in a while. And it's just like funny. It's like my day's not really different. I'm still going to work. I'm going golfing, so I guess it's a little different. But like, it's just like my mood. It's just like, I'm in a great mood. I feel good. Like, it's just nice to be able to like, even just like talking to some people. I'm like, oh, it's nice to talk to you. Thanks for calling. But it's like last week I had a day where I'm like, fuck this, man, burn it all. Like, you go through these ebbs and flows of stress. And I think obviously for me, it's more work because I don't really have family stress, luckily. And I just have seasons with work, or it's like worse than other days. But a lot of times, like I made an episode on this a while ago, a few months ago, where I was talking about like work and family as like the 2 biggest stressors that most humans deal with. But like I said, I think it's just at a core level, like fundamentally, it just doesn't make me feel good. Where I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's a bummer. Like it's like hearing someone's bad news, like someone coming in like my dog died. I'm like, oh, like, I don't even know how to react to that, but like I don't feel great anymore. Like that's sucks. So I love this topic, and I will forever come back to this topic. Just to rephrase and reframe everything for you guys and how I view things, like on a visual level. I always come back to my 6 dimensions where I say movement and exercise. Are you moving? How's your mobility? Are you exercising? Dimension 2, how is your nutrition? How is your nourishment? Are you putting the right things in your body to actually feel good, be good, look good? Number 3 is sleep management itself. Number 4 is stress management, which we'll talk about today, more of the tools. And then at the core of that, under that, is environment, community, what you surround yourself with, both people and places. And then at the core of it, the mindset, right? How are you viewing everything? And I always come back to these 6 dimensions as a frame for me personally when I talk about borderline every subject I talk about, I think, on this show. So I want to come back to all those things, and I really want to just like help people hopefully find a degree of insight that like this would be an episode for you that hopefully would be valuable if you are someone that's stressed. So let's just go from the top. Number 1, and I do put this at the top, and I try not to write this in any order. I think I put number 1 and number 10 as kind of the bigger ones for me, just because it's nice to have an opening hook and it's nice to have a closer. Attention hygiene. So the phone, the scrolling, the distractions, all these things. I touched on this last week with the episode where I was talking on like something with stress, and I was just saying like I always come back to this answer that like we are in a battle consistently as modern day humans in 2026 with our attention, right? And our attention is a finite resource. Attention is not just time, right? Because your attention can be how effective you are with the use of your time. And when you are easily distracted, you are not as efficient with the work you do, right? This morning is a perfect example. When I was starting to finish up some show prep for today, I had my phone in front of me, and there was a call, and then there was a text, and then it was the car wash guy was here, and then there was a call, and then my wife came back from workout, and like all good things, but all distractions, right? Like all things are just like, I'm like not focused right now. I was like, I need to be focused. I need to get this done. Obviously, for if it was any different scenario, I would be like, oh, like this is kind of annoying because I'm trying to get my work done, and like these are all things that distract me. So it's like I need to remove the distractions, right? I forget who says this, but there's someone that I follow in the business space that says like he's like I literally like lock myself, like his office for the long time was like in a closet, and he goes, I'll put like ear blocking headphones on, I'll put a timer on, I'll not have my phone on, I'll not have any notifications of the computer, and I just get work done. And I think about this is like, what does this have to do with stress management? Most of us at a core level are stressed because we're not doing something that we want to have done, or something or someone around us is not complying to what we want done. This could be kids. This could be coworkers. This could be managers. This could be employee. Like this could be a handful of things. So like a lot of times, like, I always say that the famous statement for me is anxiety is in the future, depression is in the past, but stress is a combination of either both those things or one of those things that something's just not getting done, right? And it's like, okay, well, think about that at a fundamental level. That means if you are not getting things done, you're either avoiding the work or you're distracted by the work, meaning your attention is being pulled into a million other places. So if you can learn to moderate the attention that you're giving somewhere else, you can learn to be hyper focused on something you're needing to get done. Having 5 things needing to get done and focus on doing a little bit of all of them all the time generally gets nothing done, right? It's like and I say this to my wife all the time, and sorry, babe, I'm blasting you on the internet for the rest of life, but I say this all the time to her that, sometimes she'll say, and I know a lot of people do this, and we all, myself included, go through seasons that we're like, oh, I have a lot going on. Like, think about this at the core of what that means. Having a lot going on is technically impossible, right? Because a better way to rephrase that would be you can't have a lot going on all at once, because it is impossible to be doing a handful of multiple productive things at once. Can I have a conversation and drive to work? Sure. So that's why I think there's nuance. Like when people say multitasking impossible, I'm like, no, it's like it's impossible to say that, because like you can clearly do multiple things at once. Would I be a better driver if I wasn't talking? For sure. Would I be more involved with the conversation if I wasn't focused on driving? For sure. So like, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to remember like being really, really productive, effective and efficient with the work that we're doing requires us doing one thing at one time, right? So the idea of like having a lot going on at one time is this idea that our brain is creating stress because we have a lot of different things that we need to get done. But the way that I reframe this is you only have one thing going on, and that is the current thing that you are working on. So let's say I have a lot going on. Maybe the only thing I have going on is writing down all the things that I have going on. So at the moment, I'm writing down, I need to do the laundry. I need to make this call. I need to book X, Y, like whatever, right? You write all those lists down. That's the only thing you're doing at the moment. And at the top of that list, that's the number one thing you're working on, because that's the number one most important thing. We do the hard things in the morning. We do the hard things first. This way the rest of the day feels easier. If that is the only thing that your mind is given towards, right? Your mind share is given towards, that's only one thing going on, right? And it's much easier said than done. I don't want to ever make my wife feel stupid when I say things like that. I don't want anyone hearing this to feel stupid when I say that, because like I deal with it. But like if we can get back into this present moment of understanding that presence by definition is doing really one thing really well, right? And if I just focus on this thing, then I can be really, really productive. And productivity is one of the greatest stress management tools that we have. So by definition, going through this, attention hygiene is learning how to shape and control and create an environment that is not distracting to you. I talk about this with even Chaz and Elliot, right? The videographers, like they got their own office, whatever, a few months ago. And I'm like, you probably feel way more productive working at the office than you do at home. And the answer to both of them are like, hell yeah, right? Because I'm not distracted. I'm not at home like, oh, my wife's got this and my kid's doing this, right? So I think like creating environments is the idea of like attention hygiene, right? Second part of that is where most people, unfortunately, are putting their attention towards is, oh, the World Cup or the Love Island or social media or the news or politics. All this stuff that I do not want to be offensive here really doesn't matter to your life. It's okay to have things that you like. It's okay to follow the World Cup. It's okay if you like following politics to follow that. It's okay to watch Love Island. But if it's doing a disservice to you by distracting you from what's really important in life, which is probably the other 8 that I'm going to talk about here, then by definition, it's not good for you, right? And a lot of us, we numb ourselves with attention. We numb ourselves with alcohol. We numb ourselves with drugs. We numb ourselves with television or social media. It's easy for me. Like the idea, I was telling this to my wife a couple weeks ago. I was like, one of the missing arts is the idea of boredom. I think a lot of people don't have the ability to be bored anymore. Like, do you have the ability to just go somewhere and sit down? Like, that's what you would be like. That's like an old person. That's like someone losing, like being, it's like senile. But the idea of being bored is like, that's a beautiful art. That's a beautiful thing to be able to do in life, because like that shows you that your brain has the capacity and your body has the capacity to be okay with nothing at a time. And a lot of times when I deal with this, like one of the bad habits that both my wife and I have, and I would say I'm definitely worse than she is just doom scrolling at the end of the night or in the morning. It was just like nothing else I can do. Like for me, like one of the things I want to get back into better is I want to get back into reading more, right? I'm like, my readings fall into like 1 or 2 times a week when it used to be like 5 or 6 times a week. And I will say it's very easy to be like, well, I don't have time. That's not true. The time that I spend on my damn phone, I can get rid of and start reading, right? I've gotten better at being like, let's watch a podcast where I can learn something versus watching a TV show. Or let's watch a podcast instead of me just sitting here doom scrolling as you're finishing up work. But I've lost it kind of in the morning a little bit, right? Where I'm like, okay, it's either social media or it's like get into work with emails, or it's like, I'm like, I should be productive. And like productivity for me would be like getting actual work done that's moving the needle forward in the business, or reading and being productive with just my mental health and my education and all that good stuff. So it's a big one. I'm going to spend majority of this episode talking about this one, that where you put your attention is going to dictate almost all of your stress, right? And a lot of times we blame work and family, and I do not want to discredit that answer. Like work can be and is stressful for a lot of people, and family, kids, especially for those that are parents, is very stressful for a lot of people. But the reason why most people are stressed towards those things is because they're not doing a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. Like if you mastered these tools and you utilize a lot of these tools, you might go to work and feel a lot happier. You might be a little bit more patient with your kid when they're breaking down, right? So like that's kind of the framing that I really want this episode to have, is like, I understand what we blame, but I don't think that that is necessarily the roots and the cause of everything, right? I think that could be more of the symptom of some of the things that we see downstream, right? So that's a big one. Okay. Number 2, huge one. Think about this as a new parent. Why most of us feel stressed out when we're a new parent. Yes, obviously raising a child, trying to keep it alive for the first time. Yes, my wife's stressed out about that. I'm not as stressed about that, but what I know I'm going to be a little stressed out is like operating on no sleep again. I did that early in my career. I did that through my late teens and my early 20s for different reasons. But sleep is the most foundational thing that you have in your entire life to regulate everything else on how you feel, how you operate, your health, right? The most important thing I can give you as far as tips on sleep is, if you can, regulate the schedule. Doesn't matter. Like Ronaldo just said this on an interview a couple weeks ago I was watching. He was like, I go to bed at midnight and I go to bed at 8 a.m. And I saw this, some freaking influencer being like, well, if I could correct him, I would tell him to go to bed earlier because most of your deep sleep and growth hormone release happens between the magical hours of 10 p.m. and 1 p.m. It's not true, but here's my response to that. It's more important to have a consistent sleep schedule than it is to have a 10 p.m. here, a midnight there, a 2 a.m. there, a 9 p.m. here. Regulation is going to regulate circadian biology and circadian rhythm. It's called a rhythm, right? And rhythm, we want to be rhythmic, right? So that's one big thing. Second thing, sleep in dark rooms, sleep in cold, temperature controlled rooms. Try to not eat late or drink late. I fall victim to this more than anybody else, and I can tell you firsthand. So literally I had yesterday, Cisco was sweet and brought me some carrot cake because he knows carrot cake's my thing, and he brought it from, I forget what the company's called, something Bunt cakes, whatever. And I got 2 little carrot cakes. Of course, I ate both fucking carrot cakes. My wife maybe had some of one, but I had 2. Sleep was shit. Right? And like, it's just a perfect definition of like certain foods super late at night. It's not good, right? Your body's spending time digesting. Your blood sugar's through the freaking roof. Your body's like working hard. My heart rate's, 10, 12 beats per minute higher than it should be. So sleep is obviously finding a schedule, finding the regulation on temperature, things like that, but then also the consistency. But just remember, like, it regulates almost everything that we're talking about. Number 3, setting boundaries and learning to say no, right? One of the most powerful words in the human vocabulary. I say this to Coach Tony. She is a machine in the greatest way for what she does for a living, right? There's a reason why she is the highest paid trainer I know, probably like ever. There's a reason why she's the busiest coach. There's a reason why she has a wait list. Like, she puts more effort than most people ever will into their job, and like, it deserves the most respect. And I say this, that like the thing that she does not have the skill of is learning to say no, which is like a pro and a con of her. This is what makes her great. It's because she says yes to everyone. She wants to help so many people. But to the demise maybe of her sleep, to the demise and maybe her own work-life balance, I will never force anything on anybody. But I always say as a joke to her, I'm like, I want you to practice this with me. Say no, like, so when I say saying no or boundaries, it's like, understand there's just going to be certain things in life that, like, depending on what you are sacrificing or chasing or striving towards, some things need to be set, right? Like I can't go out with friends and go to a bar on a Monday night or every week, because like that just fucks up my week, right? I will say, like, when my parents are in town, and nothing wrong with this, but like I golf with them every other Wednesday normally when they're in town in the summertime. And those Wednesdays, it's like, of course, I go golf. So like I skip a little bit of work, which is not the end of the world on a Wednesday for me. But then it's like I go to a Keys because that's where they love to go, and I'll have a swirl or two. And then it's like, okay, now I'm moving a little slow on Thursday. And it's like those things, it's like learning to have boundaries. But for me, like, I think time with my parents, especially, and I don't want to say they're in the later half, maybe later third of their life, and like time with them is more valuable to me than that sacrifice, right? So like there's things that you need to be able to kind of rank as far as how you're setting boundaries. For me, I really got really strong with like boundaries of like, I used to say yes to everybody. Like, I would just like, okay, let's go out, let's go to this party, let's go do this thing. Now I'm just like, I either like, well, sometimes I say yes, and I just sometimes will say no last minute, which is not fair. But I just don't go to as many things as I probably should. And maybe I stopped getting invited because of that reason. But for me, it's like, that was the boundary that I kind of set for me in my professional life, right? So we all have boundaries that you need to set. You need to learn to say no. Number 4, this is a practice on both, but one of the highest skills and I use this as a practice because it needs to be practiced daily, right? And it's something that, like, it's not, you don't just have it. There's days you have it, there's seasons you have it, but there's years you have it. There's times you don't, right? And it really is going to test you when shit hits up, and when times do get tough. But it's the ability for gratitude and presence. I always say the two most important things for someone's happiness, which is the inverse I would put probably of someone being stressed, is their ability to be grateful and their ability to be present, right? I use presence a little bit with the attention side, so I'll kind of focus on gratitude a little bit more here. Your ability to understand that everything in your life is happening for you, not to you, is a fucking superpower, right? And we take so many things for granted. We look so many times outside of ourselves. Well, it's the government's fault. It's this person's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's the prices of the Bay Area. It's California. It's the governor. It's the president. Like, we can play victim to a lot of these things, when the reality of happiness lies on the premise of, how do I learn to just be grateful for everything? Every freaking thing in your life, good and bad. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this bad event. I'm grateful for this stressful time. I'm grateful for this hardship. And it's easy to say on a podcast talking to a camera, right? It's easy to say when we think about this talking to a client or somebody else or a friend, but it's something that we all need to practice, and I got this question, and it's really kind of been on my mind the last like month, but what's one skill that you would like to pass on to your kid, right? And I asked like my wife, and she was like, your work ethic, and then I asked my mom, and she says your humor, and I would say a tad bit closer probably to my mom's answer of like just the ability to kind of like have fun and relax and just like kind of take it easy, right? I think a lot of times we make things so serious for whatever reason, right? And I think it's just human nature in a lot of ways, because like there's the status, there's the competition of others, this I'm trying to repress X, Y, and Z. But if you really just like learn to like lay back, right? Which is why I've always been like, I grew up like born in Redondo Beach, lived in Naples, lived in California. I lived in a lot of like beach coastal places, and I've always loved beach culture, right? And my wife and I talk about moving to Santa Cruz a lot, because like I just feel like there's just the atmosphere and the vibe is different. And the answer is like, why? It's like, I'm like, and I think the reality is like, people that are more connected to nature are more laid back. They're more grateful, right? I think Mother Nature is just a beautiful thing in itself, but it's learning to be grateful for all the situations in your life. And I think you're only really going to be tested when shit hits the fan, when times get hard, when work is tough, when you lost your job, when your kid is sick, your kids are crying, you're financially kind of stressed out. Like those are the hardest times where you just like have to remind yourself, like, I'm grateful for the ability to be alive, right? Like what's Gary Vee says this a lot. He goes like, there's a one in however many million chance that you were the sperm that made it to your, you made it to be you, right? I'm like, it's kind of a weird way to look at it, but like, yeah, I guess that's an element of being gratitude or having gratitude towards that. But being grateful is a freaking superpower. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to remember this. This is a practice. You either need to journal it daily, you need to write it down, you need to say it out loud, you need to say it to other people, you need to say it to yourself. Like being grateful, right? And then presence, I think, is just always being in the moment, right? Like be where your feet are. The more time you spend thinking about what's coming next, the more time you reminisce on what you just did. Like one of the things I've always loved about golf is, like as far as the practice goes, when it comes to the present moment, is like I can have a bad golf shot, and then it's just like, okay, how is your ability to get back into the next shot and then fix it correct, right? How is your ability to not think about what do I need to do for the next 4 holes in order to make this work? It's like being present, one shot at a time, one swing at a time. It's just an analogy for life, right? There was this, who was it? It was either Bezos or Musk, but it was like some like talk show or whatever. It was an interview of some sort, and I want to say he was talking to some college grads or kids, and they asked him like, "What's the number one skill that you think you could share for all these students or people as far as like success in their career and life?" And it wasn't the typical stuff that most people would think about. It was like the ability to endure pain, right? And I was like, that's interesting. And I think about that when you think about success and you think about happiness in life. When I say like not being stressed and being happy, it's not like just removing hardship, right? It's reframing it, right? It's your ability to endure it. It's your ability to be grateful for those opportunities and lessons, right? It's your ability to be present on like, Bill Ackman, big financial guy kind of in New York. He lost like $1 billion in a day and had a divorce. Like I had this like crazy fucking story where like a lot of shit hit the fan. Like when you think of billion, like not a million, 1,000 millions, right? And he was just like, I remember in this interview, he was just like, I mean, yeah, it's tough, it's hard, it sucks, but like, I'm either gonna reminisce about it or I'm just gonna start to take a little daily action, right? And it's just like the famous saying, like, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? You move one bite at a time. You keep moving forward. You stay present. You stay grateful. Keep going. Number 5, obviously, this is something we kind of think about as a little bit more objective in my world, but it's movement and breath work, right? Zone 2 cardio, low aerobic, going on walks, right? And the Stoics, they always talk about, one of the best places to refresh the brain. When you think about refreshing a page on the internet, one of the best places to refresh your brain, go outside, go walk, go play sports, go do something, right? Like just go and move, right? Go work out. How many people work out for their mental health? I mean, I am one of them for sure. I always say like one of the things that exercise probably is a bigger benefit to me than the physical side of it is just the mental benefit. Like I feel good when I'm doing something for myself. I feel good when I'm moving. I feel good when I'm doing some degree of exercise. Breath work is the number, I would say the easiest tool to just in the moment self-regulate. Because think about it this way. Inhale, sympathetic, fight or flight, right? Inhale is a more stressful type of breath. Exhale, parasympathetic, rest and digest, more calming. So if you think about breath work, is if I were to take a 4-second inhale and I would take an 8-second exhale, do 10 rounds of that. Tell me how you feel. I guarantee you. Why I wanted to get more into meditation. I didn't really stick with it for a handful of reasons, but why I did like meditation is it was an ability for me to focus on breathing and focus on breath work. And that was a practice that I think needs to happen because a lot of times we're not doing it in the gym because we're not doing yoga. We're not doing our cool downs. So I think having a dedicated practice, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, like just sitting down and doing nothing, closing your eyes even, and just focusing on breathing. What breathing does is it brings you to the present moment. All right, I remember a lot of meditation practice when I was using like Calm, one of those apps, things like that. It was always like, if you can learn to be present, right? If you can learn to think about your diaphragm going through the contraction, right? And then the relaxation. So when you inhale, your diaphragm is parachuting into your ribs. And then when you exhale, it's pancaking back out. Um, it brings you to a really, really present moment, right? So when you think about this tie between breath work and presence, I think those two things are hand in hand, because when you're only focusing on your breath, you're not focusing on anything else, right? A lot of times breath is unconscious, it's involuntary, so we don't really necessarily have to have dedicated practice to it. But if you are someone that's stressed out, having a practice towards that, game changer, right? And for some people, that can be done in a cool down stretch, right? It's like you can double down. Meditation doesn't need to be sitting crisscross applesauce to have a meditation benefit. You can go into a pigeon stretch and do that for 2 minutes and black yourself out, eyes closed, or music or calming music, and then just focus on really like having a breath count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out. Do that. Like even just saying that, like it's hard to feel a little calm, right? And then obviously the movements being the big one. Number 6 for me, this is like top 3: sun, water, nature. Once again, like I just said, I'm a beach boy. I grew up in places that are very warm where sun is shining, and I am like a completely different human when I get into wintertime here in California. When the sun don't shine, Corey don't shine as bright. That's for damn sure. Like I am literally, I think, solar powered, and I think all humans are. Where it's like I need sun to feel good. Like sun just like I just immediately feel it, just like this biochemistry change in my body. When I go dip in the lake or dip in the water, dip in the river, like I love going, it doesn't matter if it's skimboarding or surfing, or if it's like I'm going to Lake Tahoe this weekend, right? If I was like, we were up in Healdsburg a few weekends ago in the Russian River, like every time I'm in the water, it's just like a reset. Even some of the things that are more calming, right? When you think about like iodine and salt and magnesium, guess what? That's what the ocean is. Nature, right? Being in nature, being like surrounded by trees, surrounded by flowers, being on hikes, being up on a mountain and getting a different perspective on life. Like, I mean, like we get so stuck behind screens. We get so stuck behind our house or locked in our house. We get so stuck in like the city limits and the downtowns. And this is why, you see a lot of people that live in cities that where do they go take vacations? They go to nature, right? Like, why do we choose that? Like someone going to a city for a vacation, maybe like unless you have an event or something going on that makes more sense there, or someone that already lives in nature. But most of us, we choose to go somewhere where it's like, it's more calming. Like we're going to Maui at the end of the year. And it's like, I fucking love Maui. I'm just laying on a beach. I'm doing nothing. Right. And it's like, there is no greater reset in life than nature itself because of the sun, the water, the wind, and the perspective change. I think for me, it's like you realize at the end of the day that we are just like little ants on a spinning rock in fucking space, right? Like, how many times do you just think about that? How many times does that change your perspective in life where you're like, I'm stressed out about all these things, right? And I'm just like a little blip in the universe, right? I'm just this little grain of salt. It's like there's so much more to life, right? And we choose to say, that's funny actually that I say that. I had someone the last assessment I had yesterday, and she was like, like stress. She's like, yeah, but it's all self-inflicted. And I'm like, all stress is self-inflicted. Yes, sure, there's physiological stress of overtraining, malnourishment, undersleeping. And don't get me wrong, like there's ways to inflict stress on that way. But stress, from a psychological perspective, is always self-inflicted. It is your perception of the reality, right? Your perception of reality is the stress that we have. It's not reality itself. There's that famous, I think Seneca says, it's one of the Stoic quotes. Well, I think it's literally that quote. It's like your perception of reality is what's stressful, not the reality itself. And that's just like a really interesting way to think about it. Is like it's not the thing that's stressful; it's my perception of the thing that's stressful, right? So, I use that hopefully as an empowering way to look at life. That like at the end of the day, how you choose to look at those things will dictate how the outcome of those things will be for yourself, right? Number 7 is real social connection. I mean, I say this all the time. The quality of your relationships was, the thing that Harvard studied that was like the number one predictor of longevity for people. But think about it. Spend time with people you love. I use that with emphasis. There's sometimes that people are just hanging out with people that are like not the greatest for them. Like everyone in their early 20s, like for me, it was like I was a yes man. I said yes to everyone. I hung out with as many people as I could. I just loved being around. I was always the guy that had different groups and cults and like all these little different, subsections of society that I lived in. And I loved it. But then I realized that I'm like, okay, certain people for certain parts of my life are not going to be that beneficial, right? Not that it's necessarily the person's problem, but it's just like, it's the byproduct of me being in that environment. It's the byproduct of me being surrounded by that in community. And that's where I think family, friends, coworkers, and things can be a stressful thing. So, like when I say real social connection, I'm talking about hanging out with people you really love or you really want to be with, right? It's funny that like people, and the two things can be true at once. Like, there's some, like a lot of people are like, oh, kids make me, like spending time with my kids makes me happy. But then I'm like, well, what's your most stressful thing in your life? They're like, my fucking kids. And I'm like, what? It's like, it sounds weird because it's like the thing that stresses you out is also the thing that you really fills your cup the most. But it's just like there's once again pursuit of balance. There's a balancing act to these things, and it's like yes, the things that we do love the most, I think, do need to be moderated. We all like. I mean, I'm someone like this. Like my wife took a handful of years dating for us to really kind of figure out that she's like, well, like I just really do need alone time every once in a while, and she's the opposite. Like she being with me and being with her family is what fills her cup. And being with her and my family does fill my cup, but like to a certain extent, just because I think with my work, more importantly, like I need a distraction. Well, not I don't like that word. I need a separation from the things that I'm always surrounded by, and I'm always surrounded by people, problems, and questions because like that's what being a coach is, and that's what being a manager is, and that's what being an owner is, and that's what being a husband is, and that's what being a future father is. And like for me, it's like if I could just have some fucking silence, like I recharge faster than ever. So real social connection is a huge one. 8 is unproductive play and hobbies. I preach this probably more than a lot of people do just because of how important it is to me. And I would put this kind of with the nature and the sun, water, nature, probably one for me as well. But like for me, it's like when I go golf, when I go skimboard, when I get on the mountain bike, when I go, like, I know my wife was like, I was telling her, I was like, I think I'm gonna buy a dirt bike. She's like, you don't even do most of your hobbies already. I know, but like every once in a while when I do go ride dirt bikes with Mikey Mac and their family, like it'll make me feel good. Like it is true. It's like every time I go do hobbies, every time our sporting outing, like a month ago, we did our sports day that we do with the gyms. And, we played flag football, we played soccer, we played volleyball, played a little bit of basketball. I fucking love that member outing. It is the most unattended, like, member outing by a mile. Like, we had 40 people there maybe. And, like, the other events I'll have, like, 140 to 180 sometimes. Like, it's just, like, 4 to 5x the amount of people. It's like, it's crazy. But I enjoy it because, like, I like it. I like play. Like, I think one of the fundamental things that most adults fuck up is they start to, and this is where I always say, like, don't grow up. It's a trap, right? Like, just maturity sometimes I think is overplayed as an adult thing. Like, you can be mature and still live like a child, right? And for me, like, I would put myself in a bucket of very immature. Like, I'm a child, and I want to stay that way. A lot of people, like, they want to give me their 2 cents and like, I'm like, yeah, whatever, keep that to yourself. For me, makes me happy. Like I like just being carefree and having a little play in life and having a little like having some freedom inside of that. Cause I think it's too much. We like, we tie our tie too tight. We button up a little bit, we're trying to like be professional or be mature. And it's like, learn to fucking relax a little bit, right? So many people are just so uptight. Silicon Valley is known for, it's kind of like the New York of like, New York is known as a city that never sleeps around money and finances, things like that. Silicon Valley is got probably, I would say, a top 3 market for the most stressed out people when it comes to work. And it's because of what? It's because of how you perceive your work. Why not just go to work to make some money, make an impact, do some things, but understand that's just a part of life and like learn to like just like lay back a little bit, right? Or be motivated by the productive work that you are doing and the growth that you do have inside of your career, and understand that the hard times, the stressful moments are not bad stress. Those are just part of the growth, right? So having some degree of hobbies and things like that, I always say is a big one. 9, blood sugar, food timing, food quality. I kind of put like a handful of things here, but this one's pretty short and sweet, I think, because everyone in this probably listening to this has had a moment where you've had something that is a greasy, fatty, carby, processed food, and you notice the difference of how you feel. You just don't feel the greatest, right? When you have a good home-cooked meal, when you have your vegetables, you have your fruit, you have your clean protein, you feel good, right? So like I always like to remind people when it comes to like most people are like have terrible diets. It's funny because I think a lot of times people on the subjective rating for our assessments, they rate their nutrition high, and like nutrition, they're like, oh, I'm like at a 7 out of 10, and like stress, I'm like a 7 or 8 or 9 out of 10. And then like I'll hear it or I'll look at body comp. Like I can use data without even having a conversation and be like, clearly something's off. But we like to make ourselves feel good. It's a protective mechanism as a human. Most people don't eat the best, right? And even myself, I go in seasons where I'm like I'm really kind of slacking on cooking meals at home. But I tell you, when I am prepping food at home, I am cooking meals at home, and I am bringing my own food to work. Like today, it's like I had some ground beef, some bell peppers, and rice, and it's like I want to feel good when I have that instead of me ordering out. Because like normally it's like, oh, I can get Chipotle, I get some chicken, some rice, some corn. I'm a little hungry today. I'm gonna get some cheese or some queso and some chips, And it's like, oh, I'm gonna get. It's like you can go down this rabbit hole, right? So it's obviously a huge one when it comes to the tools that help us manage and regulate the stress that we have. Last one is our pre-appraisal of how you think about stress. I touched on this a handful of times already, but the last thing that I can leave you guys with is understand that stress is a perception. On the psychological front, right? There's a lot of things that I shared that are more physiological. Like there is a change in your biochemistry when you're eating a certain way, when you're moving and exercise, when you're spending time in the sun, when you're walking, when you have gratitude. Like there is literally biochemistry changes that are happening inside of your body when you're doing those things. But the last thing is I always like to tell people, a lot of times we look at hardship and tough times as bad things when we can reframe it as challenging moments and lessons, right? I had this little situation that I'm still kind of dealing with, and it kind of put me in a funk 2 weeks ago, where I finally had a response. But basically, I had this guy that was trying to apply to work here. He was kind of a weirdo. He was kind of like soliciting and lingering around, and like made a couple of the coaches like just very uncomfortable. And whatever. He responded to me, and I just hired somebody at the time, and I said, "Hey, I'm only looking for a female coach." He filed a civil complaint against the state, or against me to the state. So now it's not a lawsuit, but it's kind of like stage one. Basically like where I'm like, oh, I forgot in California, I'm not allowed to say that I'm looking for a female coach, which I think is bullshit. I'll say that on record. But I get why some of these rules apply. That like, oh, this guy as a white male was not hired because I was saying that I was looking for a female. So I fucked up because I shot myself in the foot. So I remember I was like in that moment when I got a response from the state of, okay, I need to do all these things to respond for it. I'm paying for a lawyer. It's taking time. And I remember just being like stressed. I was like, you know what, Corey? Like, there's the one way you can look at it is this is hard, this is annoying, this is stressful, boo-hoo, eh. Or you can be like, you've got to experience what your first civil complaint looks like in 10 years, right? And I don't know if it's a lawsuit. I hope it doesn't make it pass. I don't think it will. But like if it did, whatever. It's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me time. It's going to cost me energy. But it's going to give me value on what I'm learning, right? I'm going to be able to look at this framing of like, I can choose to just sit here and cry in my hole, or I can look at this as this was my first experience going at bat with the government and somebody else with a legal dispute or claim, and I'm learning. Now I know what to say and what not to say. The one thing that most people forget about when it comes to small business that a lot of people give small business hard times for, there is no fucking rule book that's shared with us. Like when I remember during the pandemic, people were like, oh, like what are we doing? Have you talked to the government, like when the reopen? Like, what the fuck? I don't have a hotline with the governor telling me when I'm opening. I'm like, I don't know. I got this. I'm watching the same channel you are. I opened up by hearing it from somebody else, not from hearing it like I got an email. So I think about that as like, and that was kind of my framing of that situation. Like, yeah, it's stressful. It's annoying. It's like, it's going to be financially tough, but like, whatever, like I have to go through it. Like, in the end of the day, I can make money back. And like, that's just a part of it. Right. And like, it's a part of the story. And like stories are only good when there's like parts that are like climatic, right? Like I don't want an anti-climatic story, right? It's just like the whole thing's boring and easy. There's going to be times that are tough, right? There's going to be times in family. There's going to be times with sickness. There's going to be times with losses. There's going to be times with your own things that you're just going to be like, fuck, boo-hoo, right? But it's like, how do I choose to reframe how I'm looking at this? And that, I think, is just a super powerful lever that most people can look at with a lot of those things. All right, guys. Well, as always, I hope you got some good little nuggies and share it with those that need to hear it. And